Hello everyone. I was thinking the other day, what sort of demo doesn't Fyne have that it is common to see with other graphical systems, places where people have tried to show off capabilities? It was a bit of a curveball, but it occurred to me that Doom is something that works on every device, but we didn't have a playable demo in Fyne. So I thought, hey, that's something that would be really cool, and I could use it to exercise a little bit of my AI coding assistant as well. So I wanted to show you the result. It's pretty fun. We brought it together in probably about 20 minutes total, I think. But let me show you how that happened and the steps along the way to get something that's fully playable. But before I go into the details, let's have a look at the game itself. I'll just go run this project. You can see it's called Goom, and it's in my GitHub alongside the other apps I've been showing you under the Andy DOT organization. So I'll just go run this folder, which I've checked out from the repository before. I'll try not to talk over, but you can see it's loaded. And we'll leave it there before it gets too gory. So you could see the game was fully running. We had the graphics, we had the motion, the controls, the sound effects and the music as well. This was not something that was just a one-shot vibe code. There's a lot of steps along the way, and I had to help it figure out what was going to be needed to finish the project. So let's just start by going back in time a little and looking at the first step. So I'm going to go back in the repository to the first commit here. And we could dive right in. The Go module is nothing particularly exciting. We're just using Fyne, and it's also depending on two core projects. Gore, which is actually that's the Doom runtime, it's sort of interpreting it and doing all of the load. And the Oto library is what we're using for sound effects. So let's look at the main Go. We have some constant setup. This was all generated by a request to a coding assistant to say, could we use a popular Doom engine and load it into a Fyne window? So it's picked some standard coordinates that we can use that matches the original resolution at its highest. It's defined a struct, which is pretty good practice. We're going to have a window that the output is contained within. The raster is what we're drawing to, and it's got an intermediate frame as well. I'll not go into too many of the other details, but as you can probably guess, we're sending events to the engine, and we've got a sound context as well. Draw frame is very simple. We have a new frame coming in, and we just set it to the one that we're rendering and ask our raster to refresh based on the new data. The event loop, again, nothing special there. The convert sound, I probably couldn't even tell you exactly what's going on in there. It was just converted in a way that's going to take the data that's available and output it to the sound system. Now you could see something that might look a little bit more familiar. We have a key mapping. The Fyne keys are defined in our API, and we need to map them appropriately into the Gore space. Things like up arrow and down arrow, really straightforward. But then you can see there are key bindings for it. The conversion has decided that Control key should fire and the Alt key should strafe. Now, depending on your keyboard, that may or may not be a good idea, but it was just what was generated, and I'm going to explore it further later on. And then we have a mapping of all of the characters that could be used on the keyboard. The Doom widget, this was just a pretty standard implementation of a custom widget. We extend the base widget, and then the Fyne Doom that was defined at the top of the file is embedded because that's going to do all of the runtime. We simply extend the base widget, and when we are asked for a render, we return the image, that raster that is being used to draw. And the min size is just that fixed size. The first pass of this was a fixed size window, but I've since updated it so it can scale accordingly. We've got the standard key events, so when keyboard events happen, it's going to be sent onto the event queue, And this is the constructor. We simply open a window, set up the audio context, initialize the engine, prepare the raster that's going to be painting for us, and then show the window. That's pretty straightforward. A couple of new items in here are specific to the Doom runtime. It needs access to the file system, and it's going to use doom1.wad for the data. That name is the shareware version of Doom that came with a couple of levels. You can get it freely available online. If you've purchased Doom in the past, then you can drop in one of those other Doom files, and I'll show you how that works later. That really was everything to get it up and running. And we could just see this version running. It looks the same, it's not resizable, and there's no background audio, but if we start it, the sound effects are there. That was not just a one-shot query, it went through a couple of iterations on the prompt so that we got things right, but it was pretty great. Well done on the AI assistant. But let's look at what I did to improve things. Next up was adding playback for background music. So let's check that out. You can see there's a new music file here. This was largely generated, and it's making a MIDI synthesizer essentially, but we needed a file that interprets that. The Doom engine was built at a time when you had hardware sound cards that included MIDI engines in them, and it was a pretty standard thing. But now there's a lot more complex music synth system on your computer, and we're just dropping back to something straightforward. I extracted that file under a suitable open source license, and we embed it in the app to interpret the MIDI sounds. Then there's a fair amount here, complex synthesizer code that's going to be set up. We're using the auto context to output the audio, but there's a lot needed to make that work. I'll not go through all of the details, but it's useful to note that what this implementation has done is implemented an interface, like you can see register stong here, is implementing the Doom music front-end interface. And so that's how the engine can know what it can use to play the music. And to use that in our main app, I have simply embedded that into the Fyne Doom structure that was already defined. So when we create the runtime using this Doom engine, it's going to discover that we can play music. Now that is a contribution that needs to be pushed up to the remote repository. It's something that I worked on locally, and I'm hoping that they'll accept the pull request so that other people using this game engine can have the background music playing as well. At this point, it's going to sound the same but look like it did last time. So I wanted to add some graphics and accessories around the side. So let's go to the icon and metadata update. You can see here we have our Fyne app now that's describing the application, and for one more AI request, I asked it for an icon that would show a fun Doom Go mashup. It looks a little perilous for the poor gopher there, but it's better than the first one where the gun was actually being shot and I felt that was just a little bit unfortunate. So instead the gopher is just running away from the mayhem. I mentioned also that the game can run when there's not a downloaded WAD file. This one that I have here, I've downloaded off the shareware site, but I don't package it into the repository. So if I was to remove that or just move it out of the way, and then run the app in its current state, it's not going to do anything. That's not hugely helpful. And so I decided we needed to have the ability to ask the user where it was. So let me just jump forward to this next one. Support specifying a WAD file. If we just look at the initialization code, you can see we've got a little bit of flag usage here. It allows specifying the WAD file, and it will use Doom1 if none is specified. So I can go run this with the Doom renamed file, and that's going to load as before with music. But of course this is not designed to be a command line utility. So there's a few things that I wanted to do just to tidy up. Firstly, I wanted to speed up the drawing and allow resizing. I just load that in a diff there. I moved to image because raster was adding a layer in between because the frame was coming from Doom directly, so we could just drop that image into a canvas image to save the interpretation and strip out some of that intermediate code. And then I dropped a background into the canvas with our little gopher friend being chased around the scene, and removed the set fixed size, because with those changes to image it scales accordingly very nicely indeed. I'll just skip ahead now to finishing up the file options. So as a graphical app, we don't want people to specify on the command line, we want to give them the opportunity to pick their file when it's run. So now, with no specified file and the doom1.wad not found, it needs to ask us where the image is. And in the background we have our little gopher friend as well, just for a little bit of an amusing backdrop. Anyway, back to the file picker. I could say this is the file and hit presto. So I think that was just about everything. It feels like it's a really usable app, and the other commits have just been little improvements around the runtime, removing warnings from Go and so forth. Hopefully you find that interesting. Do check it out, try the game, see what you think, and let me know if there's any new functionality that could be added. As a Fyne app, of course, that's going to work on all different platforms, but on mobile, the touchscreen, it's not really there. The game was built a long time before those controls, so I might look at adding them in a future video. Before the next video, do please visit one of my other sites. You can see my writing at andy.xyz, or our YouTube archive is available as well. Consider sponsoring me on Patreon to help me make new videos, feedback on what you would like to see, and perhaps even win some of those adorable stickers for your laptop. And do check out other work on the web, including aptrix.ai, where we're helping anybody to build applications without having to code. And I'll see you in a future video.